to this city are both the intensity and the harshness. When I was leaving Florida, there were a few places that I was gonna live, but none of them was like dirty enough or loud enough. They didn't have the intensity that I knew that I needed. I wanted to come to some place that felt like the center of the world. I started working outside and I didn't have a name for a while. My ex-boyfriend had this dream. He was like, oh, I had this dream that you were a tagger and that you wrote Swoon and that we were like, you know, running from the police or something, but all I could think about was what a beautiful name that was. When I draw portraits, I'm really trying to kind of capture something really essential about that person, like something that I just love, that I've seen in some moment or some gesture or whatever. Like there'll just be something that totally obsesses me and I have to figure out what that is, and drawing is kind of a way to connect with that. So I sort of try to make portraits that are like me kind of connecting with this subject, and then to place those out into the city so that people can sort of witness that moment of connection and sort of have it for themselves. I did the first of a series of these little peepholes that I've sort of started working on, which are like, I kind of make a tiny little, or basically I make a big scene in like my room. I set up a kind of a strange scene and then I photograph it. And then I put it in these little slide viewers and put it in construction fencing so you like look through the hole. And that one, it was like the first one I did. It's right near my house. I was just kind of going back to check on it, like, you know, see if it's holding up and stuff. And this woman stopped me and she told me the craziest story. I like hugged this woman in the middle of the street after she told me this story, a total stranger. She was like, basically she said that the whole neighborhood started to call that piece The Secret, and that they all kind of got to know each other because they would like come around and see it. And she basically said that there was this guy who is a little simple and so he doesn't really leave the block, and that he was the one that found it, and that he kind of felt like it was his thing because he had found it. And so he would kind of take everyone over to it. And she just said that it gave the whole block like this kind of magical feeling for a little while it was there. It was really sweet. I moved here to go to school, and I really didn't think I was going to stay that long. I didn't even think I was going to stay at the school I was at, because I like to travel, so I thought I wanted to move around. But then I just loved New York. And I've traveled a lot in the past couple years, and I kind of can't imagine living anywhere else.
Trial for second-degree manslaughter for shooting an unarmed man. It was during an undercover raid.
I've always really had the sense of the way that people store things inside their bodies, and the way that everything that you've ever seen or done is a part of you, you know. And I felt like, in a way, if I could somehow draw that, if I could somehow almost make like an x-ray of, maybe it's just your experiences in that day, maybe it's just what you walked past that day, or maybe it's a deeper story that's kind of like somewhere in there for the telling. Whenever I draw something that's like kind of straight up, just that's what it is, it's usually because whatever image I'm working from was so complete and so like, for me, just like already in place, that I sort of wanted to just like draw it for what it was. I just took a picture of these people in a park in Buenos Aires. I take a lot of pictures as reference. Not my drawing, but just the image itself reminds me of Da Vinci's cartoon of the Holy Family. Like, there's like this amazing woman, and then there's like all her boys kind of all around her. It's a kind of a cool thing. They buy this corn and feed it to the birds. I feel like that's, like, you kind of wouldn't see that in the city. People like, this is like what they're doing. They're like, let's go to the park and feed the pigeons. The best is always trying to explain it to my dad. My dad basically really deeply understands, but he also kind of tries to be tough with me. Every like year or so, we get into this like total grappling conversation, and it was really hard at first because he was really like, what are you doing? Why are you not doing things the prescribed route? Why are you saying no to like crazy amounts of money from such and such corporation? Why are you like, what are you doing? Like, convince me that this makes sense. But it often comes down to this total gut thing of like, I just know, I swear to God, in 6 months, it's totally gonna make sense. This madness, it's gonna be for my first solo show, coming up in a month.
Is this everything you ever thought a solo show would?
It's a little more than I thought a solo show would be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I ever. Yeah, I don't know that I ever imagined getting into a project like this exactly. But then, I guess I started to do shows and I started to sort of build a little. And then Jeffrey Deitch was like, hey, why don't you propose me a project? You know, and he kind of like said the word project, which I guess is the key word there, and I just was like, oh, and sort of had a little spaz moment, and then it just kind of grew, and like I don't know, I've never worked on something this scale. Some things I just sort of did what I could, you know. I mean, and I came way, way short of where I had planned, but I had planned like kind of insane, so I still feel like this is like bigger than anything I've ever done by a lot. This was like the only time I've ever gotten to the point where like there would be moments when I just had nothing and I would just have to go to sleep. And that room back there with all the tissue paper hanging had like a stack of beanbags and a packing blanket, and I would just fucking sleep for like an hour a day, like a couple times a day. And I would just get to this point where I'd be like, I can't think, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to give, I have nothing. Yeah, I think my thinking was able to like make a jump from the two-dimensional to thinking spatially and thinking about like environment and movement and kind of like, yeah, it's like I felt literally like a turtle growing to the size of its tank. Like I was given a bigger space and my brain grew. The fucking opening was so intense. The crowd surfed Grand Street. I just like ran into the crowd and I was just like screaming and just like letting it go. And then at some point, like I said, my friends like threw me up and I'm like out like this, like just looking at the skyline of Grand Street, like, is this happening? And all the hands just like passed me around. It was so surreal and so intense.